to West Coast Women Rising. I'm Jeja Flizanes, and I have Phyllis with me today. I'm excited to talk with you, Phyllis. I'm so excited to have you on the show. You were part of our book launch, live and in person, and you had your wonderful food out. So I can't wait for people to learn more about you.
Hi, thank you. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous, but mostly excited.
Great. Well, actually, nervousness is kind of like excitement. They're sort of the same physical feeling, right? One just
True.
have some people say I'm nervous. It's looking at it with a negative, like something bad's going to happen. So let's just decide that all the good things are going to happen. So it's going to be just an
Yes,
exciting, wonderful
I love that.
conversation.
I love
Good.
that. Yeah.
So first, let's talk about you're a part of ECBW. You're a member, ecosystem member, and I've seen you at several events since I joined.
Yes.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your story and go back to the origin of either like whether it be your traditions, your food, your love of food, or maybe even before that, like become an entrepreneur, like how that all happened.
So I originally went to school many years ago at UCSB, and I wanted to originally, or I thought I originally wanted to go into biology. Of course, I'm Filipino, so having Asian parents influences you a lot, and it becomes really hard to decipher what's your voice versus what's their voice, because for so many others who have similar backgrounds, it's usually your parents' voice, and you don't know the difference. I did take a huge leap. I left UCSB before graduating with my degree in biology because I was pre-med. Um, and I decided to take a little bit of a break. And I really wanted to do something in art, but I was too chicken to say that I wanted to be an artist. So the direction I took was I was going to do art history. And I went to Cal State San Marcos in the North County of San Diego. And when I graduated, it was a really hard time for the country and the economy. I graduated May of 2009. And we all know what happened. The economy took a big dump. And never in my life did I ever have a hard time finding a job. But that was the first time in my life where I truly struggled. And when you have many, many months of trying to find any kind of an employment, you start making deals like, oh, if I just do this, or maybe I do that. So you start looking for things that are lesser or smaller than you're used to. And I was filling out applications like it was my full-time job. And I was getting frustrated. It was the first time in my life I didn't know what to do. And 6 months previous to me graduating, my mom passed away. So I was praying to God and I was praying to my mother, and she literally came into my dream and she said, um, my child, do what comes naturally. And you know how there's a way your parents say something? I mean, that was just a simple thing, do what comes naturally. But I knew what she meant. And I literally woke up, got up from my bed, and I said, I'm going to wrap lumpias. I'm going to start rolling lumpias and selling them. And I pretty much hit the ground running. So that was November of 2009. So I got a business license, registered the business, and used social media to start my business. I knew food. I came from a family of foodies. My mom was a caterer in Ventura County. She was very well known, very well loved. And I didn't know business. And so there were months where I'd make $5,000 a month. And there would be months where I made $500 a month. And I didn't know what to do. And I said to myself, I need to walk away and figure something out. I obviously need to work for somebody else and know more about business and know more about marketing and creating systems. And then I'll come back with all of that information, all of that knowledge, all of that experience, and hopefully help myself. And I remember maybe 2017, 2018, um, telling my husband, I wish that I could find something or do something that would help me use all of my gifts. And, at the time during the pandemic, I was working for a local government. I was working for the city of Thousand Oaks, and I was in the finance department. And I enjoyed the job mostly because I enjoyed the people that I worked with, and I was dipping my toes into being able to show them what I could do. But it still, I felt like my gifts were underutilized, that I could be doing more. And I kept praying for that and was manifesting it, and I just didn't know what to do. And I felt like God and the universe were guiding me. So then fast forward to 2020, and you know, I get this notification. Literally, my dad's in surgery because the year before, my dad had so many health issues. He was in and out of the hospital. And we were at one of his last surgeries. And I get this notification basically telling me, don't come into work. We're going to be working with a skeleton crew, and we're laying off a lot of people, like a lot of people. And I said to myself, okay, well, at least I don't have to rush back to work. And I could take care of my dad and not feel the pressure. And, we already had been hearing about COVID-19, COVID this, COVID that. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to be at home. What am I going to do? Like, yeah, it's great. I'm going to be home, but I'm a productive person. I didn't want to just sit around. So I told my husband, let me go do something. Maybe I'll go do masks, you know? So I got on my Facebook, got on my Instagram, basically saying, I'm going to be sewing face masks. People had a shortage of PPEs. And I didn't know it then, but that was the way I was going to get back into my business. So I had seen everybody posting, the home sewers and the people who had stuff that they were selling that could help during the pandemic, like hand sanitizers and stuff, selling on their Instagram and their Facebook. And I was really private. Like all my socials were private except for my Instagram for my catering. And I never advertised on that because I just wanted side gigs while I was working. Um, so it was just like my loyal customers. They always knew my phone number. They always knew when to reach out to me. But the sewing of the face masks was going to be the thing that bridged me back into my business. This was, like I said, the last part of March. So I started telling people, hey, I'm sewing face masks. I'm here on Facebook. And I made that particular post public. I didn't know that was going to reach thousands and thousands of people. In From March until about July, I made over 2,000 masks and I shipped them all over the country. Arkansas, Missouri, Alaska, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York. I was the person people were getting masks from when they were working in hospitals in New York, and they had those big refrigerated things where they had bodies. Every time I got a nurse who would text me or call me saying, I need masks, and I found out they were in the medical field, I would double the amount of masks I sent them. I would give them free shipping. So naturally, they started telling everybody. I started getting all these referrals. And I joked around with my husband and I said, probably around April of 2020, maybe we'll make enough money so we can go to Hawaii, because I was thinking 6 months from now it'll be done and over with, maybe 9 months, completely naive to the fact that, yeah, this is a worldwide pandemic. It's going to be, years before this really ends. And I was just like, okay, but it kept going and it kept going. I was getting orders well into the evening. And at one point, since my husband was in the golf industry and his boss told him, hey, listen, stay at home. You could still service all your clients. When they do orders, we'll just drop ship. So you don't even have to physically interact with them. Meanwhile, my husband's at home saying, this is great. And he was day drinking. I give him my phone and I say, take over, take all the orders. I created a system on my notes app where copy and paste, answer these questions, we'll get your orders out to you. We systemized everything. And a few more weeks in, I said, holy shit, excuse me, like, I think we have enough money for another down payment on a house. Like that's how successful it became. And that sparked something inside of me that said, why am I going to go back to working for the city of Thousand Oaks in the finance department, doing customer service, getting yelled at, when I could work for myself? I've made other companies millions of dollars. Why can't I do that for myself? So I pivoted back to doing food after things kind of slowed down, and now PPEs are being more available. July, August, I went back to doing food, and people were asking me, can you do a combo plate? And I said, a combo plate? I'm a caterer. I've never done a combo plate. I sell trays of food. So I said, okay, let me figure this out. So I did a little bit of research on Instagram and Facebook. And I said, what can I put together? And I said, okay, I sell Filipino food. I sell pancit. I sell lumpias. Let me create a pancit lover dinner combo where I can sell a family meal for really affordable amount. So for $35, they can get a half tray of pancit and some lumpias, and each additional dozen lumpias is another cost. I had no idea how widely popular that would be, and it just kind of blew up. And I guess it worked out because of the fact all these restaurants were closing, or you couldn't do in dining, in person type of thing. You had to pick up, and it was just chaos. So all the places that were open that we were so scared would close, we were like, let's go buy food from them. We need to support them. And by doing that and having my own business and having people do porch pickups, I didn't realize that that would ignite something even more in me. So
I
that's how I got back.
So when was the transition back into food? What year?
That was 2020, because I've always done the food thing. It just wasn't always consistent. Um, you know, I just kind of did it to make ends meet. you know, um, when I was working for the city of Thousand Oaks, that was on a part-time basis. And so whenever I needed to make more money, then I would reach out to clients and say, hey, I'm going to be doing this. Are you interested? I always knew like certain clients' birthdays or their kids' birthdays. So I always knew that they would be reaching out to me at a certain time. Or if they hadn't reached out, then I would reach out to them and say, hey, I know so and so's birthday's coming up. Are you going to do you need catering from me? Do you need frozen lumpias? Do you need fried lumpias? And it just kind of spun from there. But the one thing I did do different that I'd never done before 2020 really was I created a full vegan and plant-based menu of my favorite Filipino dishes. And I didn't realize that just by doing that it would literally blow open the doors to my business. Because since 2020, my business has grown over 800%. So I just, everything was kind of like DIYable to me, so I grew my following on my own without somebody managing my social media. And in 2020, I hired a business coach, and I saw this guy doing some really fantastic and amazing things with other Filipino businesses. And I found him through a Facebook group. It was a group called SoCal Filipinos, which has now become one of the biggest Filipino American nonprofits. And the founder of that organization has now been called the most influential Filipino American in all of the United States. He even above Joe Coy, and Joe Coy is so well loved in the Filipino community. So that was those were the things that I did that made a difference. I was scared. But I knew that I was going to spend money, and I knew that okay, I'm going to pay a few $1,000s to get this business coaching. And I knew it would be worth it. And literally I got that money back in 2 months, and I was in what they called a container. It was a group of business owners, all different industries, and we did Zoom calls Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 to 9. And even though we were all from different industries, we were all able to help one another because of the fact that we have previous experience in other industries. So we were bouncing ideas off of each other, but also we had the guidance of this coach who knew marketing. And he pretty much at that point had hacked the Facebook algorithm. So I got a ton of business from Facebook. And then he kind of slowly helped us with Instagram. So that's really how it kind of grew.
You were in a mastermind, whether
Mhm.
they called it that or not. That's what it is. You were in a
Yeah.
mastermind because I, up until this year, have run a mastermind for 5 years, and it's yes, I'm the coach, and but everyone is contributing to each other. Everyone has different experience. Everyone is growing and focusing on different things. So yeah, no, it's important to have that because it's where creativity and where you are allowed to sort of stretch your mind and allow things you've never thought of before. And people can even bring in ideas that you wouldn't even consider. And all of a sudden you're like, you're pivoting. I mean, again, what happened sort of with Tawny and me in this podcast was something, I mean, it was just because I was showing up at the meeting and got the download and then went, oh, okay, we should do this, or I'm going to do this. And then we did this and here we are. So I want to go back because while I've had Filipino food before, I have a good friend whose husband's Filipino but I don't remember because I haven't had it in a while. What is a lumpia? Explain to everyone who is listening who may not have had it before what a lumpia is.
So lumpia is a Filipino version of an egg roll. And the real name for lumpia is it's called lumpiang Shanghai, and it's called that because it does have Shanghai Chinese influence. But of course, Filipinos take it and they make it their own. So it's smaller than an egg roll, and it's meat. So it's and there's several kinds of lumpias. But the one that I specialize in is the lumpiang Shanghai, and I happen to make it with beef. Traditionally, it's made with pork or combination of beef and pork and sometimes shrimp. And then you blend it in with onions, garlics, and your choice of vegetables. I always tell people there's nothing crazy in my lumpia. I tell everybody the ingredients. It's onion, garlic, celery, carrots, beef or pork, and then seasonings. That's it. It's nothing crazy. It's salt, pepper, soy sauce. So it's not rocket science. I just wanted something simple and just seasoned really well, made with love, because my mom taught me that that is a key component, which I thought when I was younger, oh gosh, this is BS. Here's my mom again with oh, it has to be made with love. But I didn't realize how big of a component that was until I was in college trying to make chicken adobo. And I was asking my mom, because I've seen her make it and I've made it before, but with her supervision. And I told her, I did everything you told me and it doesn't taste the same. And she laughed. She literally laughed. And I was annoyed. She laughed and she goes, you know why? And I said, why? She goes, because you haven't learned to cook with love yet. She goes, call me when you do. And so that's what I do now. I cook from a place of love and with intention and knowing that people are going to enjoy my food and that I'm going to get that feedback of, I really love this. It's so amazing. And it's not that I'm claiming to ever be the best cook. It's not that. I just truly enjoy seeing people eat food and enjoy it. Not just my food, anything. Like to me, that's part of joy. It's part of life. It's one of the pleasures in life. That's why I don't think I could be friends with somebody who's not a foodie. Like, I just, how do I relate to them? But that was one of the things that I learned from her is that it's not just about the ingredients, it's the way you make it.
I believe someone can become a foodie. So my partner Doug, his relationship with food on one hand is very healthy.
Hmm.
He's never an emotional eater, ever. And when he's done and he can move on. And that's great. But when we first got together 7 years ago, I get very excited about food. And I would say, so what are we going to do this holiday? Like he's Jewish. So I started making Hanukkah dinners. Well, I'm also gluten free. So I made a gluten free Hanukkah dinner, which I've made now this will be the 8th year that I'm doing Hanukkah. And I get very excited about the food. It's a paleo challah. It's gluten free matzah balls. It's, and then it's healthy ingredients and all organic. And for me, I've noticed slowly over time because I'd get like his birthday. So, well, what do you want me to make for your birthday? Or what are we going to make for Christmas? Or what are we going to make for New Year's? And I'd get all the recipes that you only do once a year, like the holiday things, and get super excited. And he's sort of like, I don't really care. I'm like, what do you mean you don't care? I'm like, you don't even get excited at all about food. Okay, that has changed. That has changed. There are now things. I make a paleo, it's gluten free naturally because it's paleo, but chicken pot pie. And he like there are things he requests and things that he gets he kind of geeks out a little bit about now. So I think that over time, because his mother wasn't, she was a cook because she had to be, because she was raising
Mhm.
boys on her own, and she used whatever packet she could open up, whatever box. He didn't even know potatoes didn't come out of a box, right? So we're talking about people that aren't, they're not cooking, and
Yeah.
food are important for traditional experiences, but not necessarily ingredients or the actual act of cooking or the love and the art of cooking. Back in 2000 and let's see, I wrote Fit to Love in 2009 or 10 or 11. And so 2012 was I'd had like a retreat, if you will, like a 2-day event around Fit to Love. And it was the first time that I had had sponsors and they provided food, some local food. And of course, it was gluten free, but it was Veggie Grill and what's the pizza company that Fresh Brothers. Fresh Brothers was new back in 2012. And so they had sent me pizzas that were gluten free and dairy free. And then Veggie Girl, of course, is mostly like vegetarian vegan. So that was all, dairy free and gluten free and meat free. But we had it was a retreat for mostly women. And I don't even remember how I promoted it, but it was women that came together because the title of the book is Fit to Love: How to Get Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually Fit to Attract the Love of Your Life. Well, let me give you the short end of the stick here. The love of your life is you. So it's about really dealing with whether you're married or together or not. And they weren't all single people in the room, but they were women who wanted a better relationship with themselves, with their eating habits, with their exercise, with their self-care. And I remember it was the first time I did this. I had all of those companies that provided food send me their menus. And we stood around the table before we ate, and I went over every ingredient and I asked them, tell me about this for your body. How does your body respond to this ingredient? What does it do for your body? And I literally went through every single ingredient for everything we were going to eat. And I took this entire room full of women who are normally way overeaters. And I saw them get really full really fast on a very small amount of food. And I wasn't trying to get them to, I had so much leftovers. I'm like, eat more, eat more. I didn't want to waste food. But what I saw happen was our parasympathetic nervous system came online. Instead of eating in a hurry or eating to repress or eating as a response to an emotion, they had valued the food. It's like what happens when you're cooking, and I'm sure you probably can relate to this. I can't even eat Thanksgiving dinner half the time because I'm spending so much time in the prep and the making of it that by the time we get to there, I'm already full. And it's not because I've been tasting this and tasting that. It's because I've been in contact, energetic contact with the food for
Yes.
so long that I'm not even hungry. In fact, I don't even get hungry until like hours after everybody leaves, and my nervous because I'm like,
Yes.
right? I'm
That
sure you've
happens.
experienced it.
This happens to me all the time because people will see me cooking for a couple days and I don't eat the same time sometimes as the guests. And they don't realize that smelling it, touching it, tasting it, that adds to it. That is part of the joy of hosting, And so you're right. Like it's so interesting when it's not just coming from a place of emotion, and really it's like enjoying and being in the moment. And then you realize I don't need to eat that much, you know, or how people mindlessly eat and they are eating at their desk and they're, working at the same time and they don't feel like they're eating. It's because their attention is split. And so I think with, my food, especially since it's different than what's available right now where I'm at, um, I think people enjoy it more and they do feel like it's not just I'm full, like I'm really satisfied. Like I could save this for later and enjoy it instead of like getting so full I'm uncomfortable. Um, and that's kind of the interesting thing with business. Like this is one thing I do, but it's bringing an awareness to other parts of myself and other parts of who I am as a business owner. Um, it's so interesting. Like for all of my friends that know me, they're like, oh, food is naturally something I could see you doing. And also, they see it as a way for me to, like another vehicle to link me to other things that I want to do. You know, like art and food go hand in hand, you
Well, we're
know?
talking about the energetic experience and expression. I thought
Right.
about it because when you're talking about that, your mom said, "Call me when you learn how to cook from love." It's really like, well, what does that mean? And it's
Mm-hmm.
being present. And when
Mm-hmm.
somebody for my retreat, for those ladies, when they, because people aren't, if you don't cook, and a lot of people don't cook, and a lot of people have no relationship with their food. They do not grow a garden, they do not chop herbs, they do not, they open a package or they order from somebody else, so there's a disconnection with their food. And when you make it with love, you have a connection with it. When you learn how to cook, even just once a week, you handle something, you cut an apple, but when you understand also the vitamin C in the apple or the folic acid, when you understand what's in what you're eating and what it does to your body, now we create a different relationship, which is, to me, cooking with love, eating with intention, which is what you were talking about.
Yes.
My last retreat here was called Healing the Mother Wound, and I literally cooked every single meal except one. So, I mean, I had a little bit of
Wow.
help. I had a little bit of help from my partner to do some smoking on the grill while we were on the smoker while we were in process, because I can't be in two places at one time. But I prepped everything and I had it ready for him to just put on the smoker and do his magic. But I don't think I wanted to go over that concept a little bit more deeply for a couple of reasons. One, this is a business podcast and we've learned all kinds of wonderful things and gotten your story about your business, but everybody eats, and also how to set you apart with what you do is how much you infuse your love and your respect and your care into the food. And when people are buying your food, especially if they know you, of course it's going to be a different thing. I had a friend whose sister, she used to be a baker. She made the most amazing gluten-free desserts, cakes for years. I had my ex-husband, she stopped doing it and we moved, so Doug never got one from her, but she did all of my birthday cakes because I knew they came from her. They were small batch kind of things. I knew they were made with love and I savored every single bite of them, and they weren't, I ate. And it's the same thing with, like, I'm sure when you're cooking, when I'm cooking, and then when people are buying your stuff, because that's important to know that it wasn't mass produced, that it wasn't done in a factory, that 10 people who don't care at all about you or what the ingredients are, or how to handle it does elevate the experience. It also elevates the way we take it in. I'm sure you saw I have wine at the live event, right? And that's kind of what I did with the wine. Like, I raised the frequency of the wine. I gave it love and attention. I Reiki'd it. I cleared it. Right? And I did that
Yeah.
because I wanted it to be a better combination with the body, right? Alcohol obviously
Right.
is not necessarily a health food, but I wanted to raise its frequency so that we could extract the antioxidants more easily, and so the body would reject any negative things in the wine. I wanted to get to that place. And I think that's what you do with your food, is that love increases the frequency, so people enjoy it more, they savor it more, they respect it more, they cherish it more, and that's really important to bring that back into our dinner table, into our, the way that we handle our food, because so often we're just really disconnected from ourselves through social media, through being constantly busy, worried about what's going on in the world, being, uh, being told that, every where you look, you're going to die, something bad's happening. And I'm
Right.
really glad that you got to prosper from some of the ridiculousness that went on in 2020. So good for you. I did too. Everybody started podcasts, so it was a really good year for me as a podcaster to have a mastermind, because everyone went, well, if I can't work, I should start a podcast.
Right.
So there definitely were some benefits. So I just want to make sure people understood that when they work with you, when they hire you, whether it be for themselves or they're catering an event, that it is going to transform the event, because it isn't food bought at Costco, and it isn't food it's faceless. Like, you can hear and you can feel and you can know the energy that's being infused into the food.
Oh, yeah. And it's so interesting, my mom, people don't have enough respect for people who grow our food, take care of our food, prep our food, cook our food, all these things. And, my mom and my dad worked really hard, because they're immigrants from the Philippines. They worked really hard so that I would have an education. They wanted, more for me. And what is so funny is I went and did all this schooling to end up being a caterer because, you know, it's my calling. Like, spending even thousands of dollars to go to this institution, and that wasn't even the thing that made me feel fulfilled or successful. It was the interaction that I have with the community. I have this craving to always be with community. It's not gimmicky. I don't know that I'm ever going to be a millionaire from doing this, but I know that this is the vehicle that I'm using right now to put myself out there. And maybe part of it is until I get comfortable with other callings I have in my life. Um, but the one thing that always brought family together was always food. And I've said this before, Filipino food is a food that is not as highly recognized as Chinese food, Japanese food, sushi, even, pho and like Korean food. And we are the second largest Asian immigrant group in the United States. But we are so underrepresented in business as leaders of industries and in food. And I think a large part of that is, Filipinos and Filipino Americans, they push their children into what they think are more secure jobs. And that's why there's a lot of Filipino engineers and people in the medical field. Like when Filipinos find out that I'm not a nurse, like that's another conversation in and of itself. But there's so many ways to care for people. Food is the way I chose to do it. Um, you know, I haven't always had the best relationship with food. I grew up overweight most of my life. I know part of that is trauma, and food was a way of comforting myself. But I started to have a better relationship with food and myself in 2012. I had actually lost 80 pounds. And the funny thing is, I thought, okay, if I'm going to lose weight, I have to deprive myself. And I found a way of eating where I could. A lot of people would find this interesting because I'm overweight right now, but I actually really enjoyed working out. I was never the person that shied away from physical hard work. Um, in high school, I took the hardest PE class because I wanted it to be first period. What did I get myself into? I got into track and field. And anybody who saw how I struggled would have laughed. But to me, it wasn't just a physical challenge, it was a mental challenge. It was a test to myself. Can I do this? And I remember my PE teacher saying, Phyllis, I know that you're not as fast as everybody. You're slow, but I see that you put so much heart in what you do. And instead, I was like, oh my God, am I going to get the first C in high school ever? Oh my God, my mom's going to kill me. My dad's going to kill me. No, he gave me an A. He said, you earned an A. You have an A minus. He goes, because you have room for improvement. But I see the effort. I see the intention. And I didn't understand if other people saw it, but it was so nice to hear it from him. So now that I'm able to put that intention with my food and people responding it to it the way that they do, it's really magical to me. I'm literally a nobody compared to so many of these other food creators. Like I just did the banana festival on Saturday for the third year in a row. Okay. And there's all these food trucks and here's my little tent, and I have my own following. And I remember I had just gone to the bathroom and I was like, okay, if I have to walk all the way back, let me just at least record this lineup of food trucks and show all of my clients where to find my booth. And as I'm walking, because I'm walking this walk, and of course my short little legs, so I'm just taking longer than usual. I hear one of the guys from the one of the taco trucks saying, the lumpia lady is here. The lumpia lady was here. And he sounded kind of excited. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool that, here I am with my little tent and people still know who I am. And it's other food producers that know who I am. So that meant a lot to me. I wish I had left it in the video, but I had to put music over it. But if I could have that part heard where he's yelling that, that would have been really nice. But
That's
it felt really good to hear that.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
What is the wrapping of Olympia?
So previously they used to be made out of rice paper. And because I remember as a kid seeing it said rice flour, water, and maybe some other preservative. But now, and I discovered this, they slowly transitioned it to wheat flour. And I guess that makes sense because rice flour is expensive. So it transitioned to wheat flour. I remember confidently saying, "Oh, it's gluten free," and then I said, "Well, you know what? Let me double check." And I checked, and I was shocked. And it wasn't just one brand. It was all of the brands are now wheat flour, which is really unfortunate. But I did have a client who did say there are a couple of gluten-free brands. And then, of course, the old school Filipinos would say you can make your own, which is time consuming and tedious. So I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. But I would love to make gluten free lumpias for somebody because I've had that requested so many times.
I would love to taste one. And so that's for my own, I need it. And I know you do plant-based and vegan, and I'm not plant-based or vegan, not that I don't love plants. I do, and I'll be preparing for a client that's coming this week. She's vegetarian, so I'm going to do sort of a vegetarian meal, and then I'm going to do a vegan meal also, with one of my favorite plant-based proteins that I sometimes look for excuses to have. So, because Doug doesn't necessarily eat that. But I remember I grew up with a friend of mine. She went to school with me, and she was a Chinese, where was she from? Vietnam. She was Vietnamese. And we used to trade. My mom would make cookies and her mom would make egg rolls. And so that's every holiday we would trade. Here's your egg rolls and here's your cookies. And, but I remember I thought it was rice paper. I don't know. So have they done away with all kinds of rice paper in the different Asian
I
stores?
think they do have Vietnamese have rice paper. It's the rice paper they soak and then it softens and they do make that into egg rolls, but it's not the same as a lumpia wrapper. Lumpia wrappers are specifically thinner and crunchier. That's what makes them so good. If you get a traditional Chinese egg roll wrapper, you could visibly see how much thicker the egg roll wrapper is. It also tastes different, like the mouthfeel of it. It's never going to be as crunchy as a lumpia wrapper. But maybe one day, I'll get to the point where I can make my own and produce my own gluten-free rice paper or rice lumpia wrappers because I do see a growing need for that. Um, I know that a lot of people that I know who are gluten-free, they'll do what they call like an egg roll like bowl where all the components of a lumpia or an egg roll are in it minus the wrapper. So,
Okay, well, just something to think about for
yeah.
me. And even though I don't, so now I know. Let's tell people where they can find you. Who do you work with? Where do you work? Obviously, if you live out of the state or out of the country, we might have an issue. But for those that are local, those that are part of this community, those that are in California, tell them more.
So I live in Port Hueneme and my certified kitchen is in Ventura, California. Um, I work out of a place called Summit Kitchen and I take orders for catering. And one of the new things I've introduced to my business is I'm selling my lumpias wholesale to restaurants in Ventura County. So you can find me on Instagram at Masarap underscore Lumpia. And then you can find me on Facebook, Masarap Lumpia 805. And my website is masaraplumpia.com. If you Google me and you look up Ventura County, I'm the first account to come up. Um, as I've stated before, if I'm not one of the oldest, I might be the oldest catering company in Ventura County. So it's pretty easy to find me. And I also have people directly message me and call me to order. So 805-889-3177 and Masarap Lumpia, just look that up and you'll find it. Masarap means delicious and lumpia is lumpia. So even though I named it a Filipino name, I know all the people who've had the entry level food of Filipino food, which is lumpia, they will know what it is. And that's why I put it in the name because people who've had it will be like, oh, she sells Filipino food so that I'm easily identifiable. So,
I was wondering if it was your mom's name, her catering company.
oh no. People have also asked me why haven't I named it my actual last name, which is Masaya. Masaya means happy. And the reason I didn't name that is if it failed, I didn't want it associated with my family. So it was very much strategic. But I figured if I put masarap, all the Filipinos would know, oh, that means delicious. Okay, let's go check it out. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm hoping everyone is at least inspired, if not hungry, and you'll check out all the show notes for the links to Phyllis and how to get in touch with her. And I'm sure if somebody wanted to do custom, like if they said I'll pay you more for gluten free or for custom, would you do that?
I would do that. I would have figure out a way, also with time permitting, because I still do pop-ups. I'm trying to move away from that. I'm trying to do, if I do pop-ups, they're going to be mostly like larger food festivals. I really want to do more weddings. I've done weddings, funerals, corporate events, baby showers, things like that. But mostly right now, I'm trying to grow the wholesale business. But when time permits, I definitely would be down to take an order and challenge myself. But I want to do it confidently because I want to do the food justice and I want to make sure that I produce a high quality product for people.
Well, if you need a taste tester in the meantime who's gluten free, I'll be happy to be that person before you give it to
Perfect.
somebody else. So, all
Yeah.
right, Phyllis, thank you so much. I hope everybody will look her up, follow her, if nothing else, just for inspiration, and to watch her grow because I know you will. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person.
Thank you so much, JJ. I appreciate you.